Hello, I'm Nelson Ford at the Gunsmith, Phoenix, Arizona. And I was kind of compelled to do um, this feature on the older Smith and Wessons. I got a few calls today, and they were normal calls, and I understand that it's easy to complain about any product that's out on the market today. And we did have a guy with a new mountain gun, 629. He snapped off a trigger pivot, and I said, the new guns are fun, but you might want to look at some old ones. And he politely told me that they don't have the old ones where he's at. And I discussed gun broker. I should have gone on to discuss gun shows and the like. Gun clubs often have guns for sale listed on their cork board. And if I couldn't buy older Smiths and Colts, I would probably give up firearms and learn to play my guitar better, because I see no romance in brand new product. Does nothing for me. And I'm not foolish. I do know that fuel injection is a better way to go. Works at high altitude, um, as opposed to carburetors, and it's starting in cold weather, etc. And radial tires compared to bias ply tires. I drove on bias ply tires, and many of you might remember, sometimes there's a split in the road or a uneven part or a crack that goes all the way down the whole block, and your tire would get into it, and it would try to pull your car around. Radial tires are wonderful, but when it comes to Smith and Wessons, this is a second model Mark II. This was exported to Canada. It's got the cross pennants up here and other um, stampings. I'm not even sure what units these are, uh, but they're pretty common. I looked them up in the book, and they're in not Roy Jinks, Sapika's book, in the 5th. And so the reason I brought this gun up out here is I wanted to show you some of the things that they used to do in these guns. And you'll never see this if you don't buy old guns and enjoy them. This is the bushing and the hammer. There are two of them in the hammer to keep it centered in the frame, and so it doesn't lean one side or the other. You don't spend money doing that stuff today. And there's also one of the bushings is in the trigger as well. And then on the bolt in the back where the plunger and spring are, you have a small little screw. It's got a polished head on it, and it sits flush with the top of a polished the bolt tail. They eliminated this screw and just put the spring and plunger, and you have to trap them in there when you put the gun together. But it just shows so many things that used to be done. They took their time, and labor was cheaper, I guess. I don't know. But I do know that they had this beautiful mushroom head on the extractor rod before 1928, and they went to the narrow one. They had the less work to do underneath the barrel and less work to make the part. And so, there's so much romance tied up. Here's a 100-year-old gun. This guy's got this loop on the lanyard. I don't know why, but I left it on there when I was working on the gun because he brought it in with that. And he didn't even know the gun is here. I just grabbed it and brought it home because I wanted to discuss these differences. If you look at the inside of this plate, the way it's machined, it looks like a copper ceiling in an old West bar restaurant. They even had them in general stores, those copper ceilings, just the way that it's done. It's done so clean, and they've cross-cut everything. It's just beautiful stuff. Of course, it came with diamond wood grips, service-style grips. These guns had the gold medallion, as these grips do. This gun was converted, however, because the 455 wasn't a real popular caliber here in America, and it was converted to 45 ACP. I've got this nice old Remington box. That's my favorite. It just got the dog bone. It's called dog bone box. But they converted it to ACP so that they could run it with the U.S. ammunition. So that's just my little take. There's so much romance wrapped up in this gun right here. It was exported to Canada, used by those fellas, came back to America, converted to an American military caliber, and went on to live a new life. And then it has all these little features that you don't see. This also notably has the long action. And I've talked about it before, but the short action engages differently. It engages like this, and then the hammer comes down and fires, and then it comes back down and it does this again. But on the long action, the trigger simply pushes the double action fly and then releases it and comes down and resets. So at any rate, this is long action, large frame, just lovable. And to go along with this, I have this other gun here. It came in the shop and it's had a cracked stock, and people knew I like 410s, like I like 22s. I like the little cows. And this is a nasty old single barrel, 26-inch barrel on it. I don't even know the maker. Because I looked at this repair on the stock, and they made a little hook at the end of the wire, stuck a brad in here. Watch that lamp. Stuck a brad in there and wrapped it real tight. Somebody did a really good job. They had this thing held in a vise or something, and he was pulling that wire around. There's no movement. It's not loose. And then when he got to the last wire, he made a hook and stuck another brad in there. And when did he do this? Before or after World War II? There are no plastic parts on here. And that's a whole nother subject in itself. In my short little life, I opened in 1980, started experiencing guns at that time, people bringing them into me and me trying to figure them out. And in the short time I've been in business, the Mossberg pump went from a steel safety switch, click ball safety switch, to an aluminum one. And then they went to a plastic one. And I just hit myself in the head. And the Remington 870, the greatest shotgun ever made, greatest pump shotgun by far, by legions. They went from a metal trigger group to a plastic trigger group. The beloved 1022 Ruger went from a metal group to a plastic group. And that can go on and on and on. And all of a sudden, plastic is being found in places you never thought it would be, radiators. And so I used to tell people, when I opened in 1980, I don't think any advancements were really made in any of the classic designs except for how to make them cheaper. Mem parts, aluminum parts, cast this, cast that, plastic this and that, rubber grips, It just, not to say I don't have some rubber grips in my own home, but a lot of things have changed in it. So if you can't, and maybe I'm the last romantic on the planet, but this gun talks to me a hell of a lot more than a brand new 629 does. And if I had my choice for this or a 629, and I would take this. I always mark them, like on the Model 19s and the 13s when they come in for work. I always put orange tape on those instead of yellow when they say 38 special only. And I send them back to customers like that. I don't want them shooting magnums in those older guns. This gun does not have a safety bar in it. This cutaway in here is for the hand, the advanced cylinder advanced hand. There's no safety bar. The hammer does rebound. Trust me, doesn't work. I've dropped these things and had them fire up between my legs and into the ceiling. So you only load 5, and it's safer that way. It's like a peacemaker. So anyway, I get pretty worked up when I talk about the older guns. I think I really love them. Here's a great box of an old box of Federal. They didn't get the label on their rate, but they still folded them and sold them anyway. You can see the labels off to one side, which means the label is off on every side. But that's just great old box of 410s there. Thanks for watching, and I'll try to get on a regular subject next time. Maybe I'll try to get my buddy to bring me some more odd caliber Marlins. Thanks for watching.